welcome back to My Kitten Reads. I'm Eleanor and this is my September reading wrap up. Yes, something other than a Friday Reads. That's a change, but it turns out September was actually a pretty good reading month, although before I looked into it, I actually didn't think it was because I spent so much of the month trudging through university stuff, one of which isn't even on this list because I didn't finish it until today and it's now October. That I didn't think I'd read that much, but I actually did. I read I think it's 11 things. So, yeah, pretty good. And it wasn't too bad on goals wise either. So, because I read I think at least 3 that were POC and at least 2 that had queer characters. So, actually not too bad a reading month. And I made brilliant progress on the Hugos as well. So, yay! So what did I actually read? So I started the month with The Duke's Daughter Part 1 by Shana Grandison, which is, as it sounds, a Pride and Prejudice variation. I don't think I ended up getting to Part 2, or I might have got halfway through and got distracted or something. But yeah, obviously it wasn't holding my attention that much. But Part 1 is essentially the Bennetts are a duke. Mr. Bennet is a duke, therefore Lizzie is a duke's daughter and she has huge social power, and so when Darcy, she's quick to judge, but when Darcy insults her, as what happens in the Meryton Assembly, without trying to find out who she is, it has huge social consequences, particularly huge consequences given that actually the Bennetts are friends with Darcy's Fitzwilliam relations and Darcy just happens to have never met them. So, shenanigans ensue. And Darcy immediately has to sort of rethink the way he thinks about the world. Then I finished the only one that is physical, which is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. So this was another one I was reading for university, and I was reasonably well surprised by it because I had a bad experience when I read Wuthering Heights by, is it Emily Bronte that wrote? I can't remember, but I didn't really like that, so I wasn't sure what I was going to think about this. I actually didn't mind it. It's not going to be one of my favourite pieces of 19th century literature, but I actually did, the plot-wise, didn't really like our hero. I've forgotten his name already. But yes. Did not actually like our hero of the tale, whose, like I said, name I have already forgotten. That's not a good sign. But I did actually like Jane. I thought she was quite a sensible, likable character with a thread of steel to her. Once she found out about the wife, she knew that despite her love for her former husband-to-be, she knew she had to leave, and so she did. And then when her cousin pressed her to marry him to go to India, she was like, no, because I know being married to you would be terrible for me. I will go with you as a friend and as a cousin and as to help, but I will not marry you. So she really had a bit of a spine to her, which I like. So that's Jane Eyre. Then I finished off the last few novelettes on the hero list. So I read Monster by Naomi Kritzer, which I didn't love, but it was about a woman who went to China in search of an old friend, as it turns out, because he'd used her scientific research to cause harm, and so she was helping various government agencies hunt him down. Then Two Truths and a Lie by Sarah Pinsker, which I kind of liked, but it was also kind of weird. So it was this woman who had gone home, was visiting home. A former schoolmate's brother had passed away. She offered to help him clean out the house, which was full of it was like hoarders gone mad. In the process, rediscovering this old TV show that used to be filmed in their town, with all the kids. It was like a kids story time thing, and apparently she was on it and never remembered. But as she goes on, she realizes that the really weird presenter, the stories he often told, actually ended up coming true about various kids, either with character traits or with events that happened to them. And yeah, it was a little bit weird. So that was Two Truths and a Lie by Sarah Pinsker. And then The Pill by Meg Ellison, which is also a novelette. That was kind of interesting. It was about this diet pill. And so it's from the perspective of a woman whose mother was always taking part in all these research experiments to try and lose weight. And this pill worked. But in like 10% of cases or something, it killed the person. Like, it was a miracle pill, but you know, it could kill. And it killed her father, but it worked for her brother and her mother. And they kept trying to put pressure on her to take this pill. And in the end, she becomes part of this underground society of fat people who don't want to take the pill, and so who are kind of this underground, because everyone is suddenly becoming all exactly the same body type. And so yeah, and so it's this kind of almost underground resistance of people who refuse to take that pill and become almost fetishized. And that's how they earn their money. So it was weird, but it was kind of good. So, and really interesting. Then I went back to Pride and Prejudice Variations and read a new one by Martin Hunnicutt called Anonymous Murders, in which teenage Lizzie becomes an author, and cue Darcy getting really irritated at this new author who has set one of their murder mysteries in Derbyshire, and now everyone thinks it's Pemberley. And he's trying to figure out who this author is. But of course it couldn't be a woman. No. Yeah, so that was amusing. Then I moved on to whilst doing my university reading, moved on to some of the novellas from the Hugo list. So I read Ring Shout by Peter Jelly Clark. Now, I love Peter Jelly Clark's work. This one I was really nervous about because of the historical setting. So this is Peter Jelly Clark. You've heard me talk about them before. Writes basically historical fantasy and historical horror in alternate kind of universes. And so this is set in the 1920s in Georgia in America, amongst KKK rallies, which made me really uncomfortable. And it's a case of the actual monsters, the eldritch. It was also more horror than I actually like. Like, I'm not really big on the horror side of things. And so this was a case of, you know, the eldritch horrors are hiding within the KKK. And there's this group of women who are going out and trying to fight them. And one of them's got a sword, like a mystical sword. And it sort of has to learn things about herself in order to defeat the eldritch horror. Yeah, so it was good. It just wasn't for me because of those two elements that just not a comfortable for me. So if horror is kind of your thing, and you like that kind of historical setting, go for it. Like, I always recommend Peter Jelly Clark. This one, just Ring Shout, just not my thing. Then I read Finna by Nino Cipri. So this story was again a novella, and it was about basically one of those big sort of furniture chain stores, kind of like, it was kind of based on the idea of, and it's gone. I can't believe I've forgotten the name of the store that really exists. You know, the big Swedish furniture store. You know what I'm talking about. Can't believe I've never actually been. So I can't believe I've actually forgotten the name of the store. It's just gone. Anyway, so in this store, as it turns out, there are these like dimensional portals that occasionally pop up. And so this queer couple who have broken up, but they both work at the store, and they have to go in search of this customer, this grandmother who's wandered off into this other dimension. And so they sort of end up finding out that she's been eaten by a plant. But there's a version of her that is the closest match. So they keep hopping through trying to find this version. and they find her, and yeah, adventures start happening. And I think this is the first one in a series, and I might actually be willing to, despite the interdimensional hopping stuff, I might actually be willing to, yeah, read the next one when it comes along. Then I read The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo. I actually really liked this one. It was sort of a soft, gentle fantasy story about a cleric and her bird, who the role of their order is to remember stories and catalogue objects and remember history and stories. And she goes to this lakeside cabin where this former empress who has passed was exiled for a while, and finds the empress's maid, who's still there, and who tells her these stories of how the exile happened, and then the revolution and all this kind of stuff. And it's sort of like, just, there's a lot of politics in there, but it's also like very gently told. And this is also apparently the first in a series, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what else comes out in this series. Then I flicked back to finish another Pride and Prejudice variation that I was halfway through, called Lord Harpenden's Daughter. Again, the Bennetts are the daughters of an elusive earl who has not really been in society. They arrive in society, Darcy insults them, stuff happens, there's a kidnap plot. Didn't hugely love this one, to be honest, but you know, it was reading, so I read it. And then another one, I finished off the month with another one that I actually had seen for pre-order, and I hadn't pre-ordered it, but I'd been keeping my eye out for it, and that is Charlotte Lucas Takes Charge by Shana Grandison, in which there's a slightly different Bennett household in that Mrs. Bennett passed away before the plot. But in this, Lizzie is clearly not going to want to marry Mr. Collins. Charlotte overhears Mr. Collins talking about throwing them out when he inherits, and is horrified. And so she takes charge and ends up marrying Mr. Bennet. And that changes everything. So yes, that was what I read in September. So it was 11 things. It was Hugo reading. It was comfort reading. It was uni reading. There were queer stories about queer characters, and there were stories with non-white authors. So pretty good reading month overall, and I'm hoping that I can continue this on, even though I've still got some uni reading to do that I'm not looking forward to. Poetry this week, but then I've got to pick up Thomas Hardy, and yeah, there's trauma. At least it's not Tess. I would not put myself through reading Tess again. But yeah, I'm kind of not looking forward to that. But I probably need to start reading it soon. So, but yes, if you've read any of those books that I've talked about, comment down below. Happy to discuss them. Would love to discuss them. And I will see you all again really soon. Bye.